My name's Jordan Young. I'm a track and field thrower from Canada. For over a decade, I've been working to understand every aspect of throwing. I'm an athlete, which means the only way to be great is through raw hard work and determination. This is my story. I'm going to be taking on one of athletics' biggest challenges, the Olympic Games.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of JY Throws. It's Monday, October 21st, and I'm starting this week off with another stair session. I've got the 40-pound vest on today, and last week I was using 30 pounds, so I added an extra 10 pounds, and hopefully that's some good resistance, get my legs nice and rubbery, and have a good productive week.
In today's episode, I want to show you guys my new lifting program that Martin put together and show you some of the modifications that I'm doing because of the injuries that I have, but also try to break it down so that you can understand building your own lifting program and start to add exercises based on your experience level with lifting. But first, I want to talk about some discus technique because I was feeling some great things in the ring today, working on some cues that I discovered last episode. Starting things off this week, throwing a little bit of discus, and last week I was analyzing some of my discus throws, comparing it to Daniel Stahl, and noticing that I was having a big problem of leaving my sweep leg behind out of the back of the circle in discus. And you can already see that I'm letting my sweep leg drag behind. So my hips are dropping back into the circle right now. And I've got to drag that leg around compared to Stahl, where he's actively using it to drive him over his pivot leg so that his center of mass is headed that direction. So today I really want to work on having a more active sweep leg to help me get to the middle with a nice tall posture and finish it nice and tall as well. But I'm going to start off by doing some stand throws, working on keeping the discus with my shoulder, keeping it nice and tall, making sure I'm not letting it drag behind. Good block, tall posture, rotating up and over top of my block leg, discus with my shoulder. If you're curious about any of the things that I'm working on in stand throws or how I do them, I recently released a video on how to do the stand throws, and I'll put a link to that in the description below as well if you're interested. But I've been feeling some good things recently in the stand throw, so I'm just going to continue to do them every day and try to get them more and more consistent. And after this, I moved on to half turns, which is something that I don't typically do, but the next video that I'm going to be releasing is another how to throw discus video covering half turns. So I'm just trying to do a couple in practice every day to get them nice and dialed in for that video. And I'm just working on a tall posture and getting a nice block and finishing the discus nice and tall, just like in the stand throws. I want to make sure that I'm nice and active with this sweep side so that I can get to the middle nice and tall. Just got to find the timing, making sure that I'm getting back over top of my right leg and actively using this left leg to send me over that right side. And overall, I'm really pleased with how things were feeling today. And for the most part, I was doing a lot better job getting my center of mass over top of my right leg out of the back, and that helps me travel nice and straight across the ring so that I can get more of my energy into the implement. Reaching long over my right side and get a more active left leg coming around to the middle so I can try to hit a nice tall posture. And the biggest problem that I'm having now that I'm changing up the rhythm of the throw is I'm missing the timing of the finish. So some throws that you'll see are coming out a bit early, and that's just a matter of sticking with the same rhythm in the ring and finding the timing on the finish to go along with that.
This is a little longer. This is really good.
Tall in the middle, put down for a block, finish it. And this is one of my favorite throws of the day, and I'm doing a lot better getting more rotation out of the back and not diving into the middle of the circle. My feet are hitting pretty good spots, and I'm getting a nice solid block that I'm turning everything into. So ideally, I'm going to be trying to get more and more throws like this. It's just going to take consciously thinking about it every day in practice. Anyway, let's get into some lifting. In today's episode, I want to explain to you guys how to build a lifting program to have you peak for competition by explaining to you the things that we consider when building a lifting program. And every athlete is so different in their experience level, so I don't want to give you one program of exactly what to do. I want to give you the understanding of how you can build it for yourself based on your experience and fitness level. I first want to quickly say that if at any point you find yourself enjoying this video or learning something, if you could hit that like button so we can get it out to as many throwers as possible. But the first thing that I wanted to cover today for lifting is the weekly schedule and what we're trying to do in each workout. So with lifting 4 days a week, you can see that every day we're trying to do the same thing. We want an Olympic lift, a power lift, core exercises, and supplemental lifts. And if you only have 3 days a week to lift, then it's the same thing. And this is the first step in building a lifting program. But now I want to move into what each of these categories are. The first thing I want to quickly say about Olympic lifts is that they're incredibly technical and can be quite dangerous when lifting. So I definitely recommend finding a local gym that does Olympic lifting and get a few sessions with a coach explaining proper positions and how to keep your core nice and tight and your back straight so you're not arching and going to blow out a disc in your back. It's definitely worth the investment at first because Olympic lifts are one of the most helpful lifts for throwing. So the two Olympic lifts you have are your clean and your snatch, but most throwers typically do a power clean and a power snatch. And the only real difference is that you're not catching it as low. And then you also have your clean pulls and your snatch pulls. And the next thing I want to move on to is power lifts. And the first thing is squats. And you can see all of the different variations of squats that you can do. And I'm sure there's many more. These were just the ones that I thought of quickly. And squats are important because your legs are the powerhouse for the throw. So the stronger that you can get those, the easier it is to drive more power into the implement on the finish. The next main power lift is your bench press. And again, you can see all the different variations. And working your arms and chest and shoulders is also very helpful for throwing by having a nice strong upper body to accelerate the implement even faster. The next category is core exercises, and these are important because they help every aspect of your life. But to avoid injuries from lifting and throwing, it's important to have a nice solid core, and that's going to help protect your spine. And the next category is your supplemental lifts, and this is really every other exercise that you can think of. And ideally when building a lifting program, you're designing it around your Olympic lifts and your power lifts, and then you're throwing in all the supplemental stuff to just keep your body balanced. So if you did a bench press, you might want to add rows into your workout so you can strengthen your back. Or if you did an incline bench press, you might want to do a lat pull down, and you're just trying to keep everything balanced. And for all of these exercises, you can go on YouTube and look up a video of how to do them to execute the proper movements with the proper technique. And there's nothing special to designing a lifting program. You just want to try to work every single part of your body and keep everything nice and balanced. The next thing I want to talk about is how to set up your reps over multiple months so that you can peak for competition. So for today's example, I want to give you guys an 8-month lifting program and how we would structure that to peak for competition at the end of the 8 months. So we've got 32 weeks in the 8 months, and we know that on week 32 we have the competition that we want to peak for. So week 31, I want to make sure that I'm doing some explosive lifts to get my nervous system nice and fired up to compete the next week. So now the way that we structure the rest of the year is we do 4 weeks of lifting and then 1 rest week. And the rest week doesn't mean that we're doing absolutely nothing. We're still going out and throwing, and then we'll still go to the weight room and do some light bench press and some bicep curls and bunch of core exercises and just keep the body moving and keep all of the muscles nice and tight. So we set up the whole year like that. We've got 4 weeks of lifting and then 1 rest week, and 4 more weeks of lifting and 1 rest week. And that leads us up to the competition. Now to set up the reps, it's really helpful to work backwards throughout the year because you can plan where you want to ultimately get to and then work backwards from there so you can plan out your reps throughout the whole year. So as an example, in week 29, I want to have my reps down to 2 for my power lifts, because that's when my body tends to fire the best. So the week before that, I would do 3 and then 4 and then 5. And what I'm showing you guys is a super pyramid to peak your nervous system. And if you look at the pattern of the reps, you can see that in week 24, I start 1 rep higher than week 29. And then week 19, I'm doing 1 rep higher than week 24. And by setting the numbers up like this for the last few months, you're going to peak your body to fire and move the most weight right near competition time. And if you look at the first 2 cycles, I set them up a little bit different. Because when you first get lifting for the year, you want to do some higher reps and include more cardio in your workouts to get more blood and oxygen flowing to your muscles. And that's going to help prepare them for the heavier lifting cycle that's coming later in the year. And the slide that's on the screen right now is an example of what the reps for your Olympic lifting might look like over the course of 8 months. And for myself, I like to get down to 1 rep for Olympic lifts. And then I didn't like to go over 6 reps when I was trying to go heavy. So during the pyramid, I tried to keep it there. Because after 6 reps, I'd start to get tired and my technique would break down, and then I was at more risk of being injured. And earlier in the year, with the cardio portion of the lifting, I did some higher reps and got up to 8. But the goal with that is to go lighter and just get the muscles used to the lifting that's going to be coming. And the big thing to keep in mind is that this is the ideal world if you were a robot that never got sick and was never injured, or whatever other reason you end up missing lifts. So there may be times throughout the year that you need to restructure your lifting. The next thing that I want to explain to you guys is the amount of sets and reps that we have per practice. So on the last slide, I was showing you guys the list of the 32 weeks and the amount of reps that you're doing. and that number can be represented as X. So at every practice, we're doing 6 sets of X, and 3 of those sets are to warm up, and 3 of the sets are the work sets. And for the supplemental and core lifts, we typically do 4 sets of 8 to 15 reps, and this just depends on what the exercise is. If it's something like heavy lat pull downs, you might want to stick closer to the 8, but if you're doing a different, easier exercise, you might want to be closer to the 15 reps. So here's an example of what Monday week 1 would look like based on the information that I was giving you guys before. So I would start with cleans, and that's 6 sets of 8, and that's 3 warm-up sets and then 3 sets at your work weight. The second exercise would be squats, and again, that's 3 more warm-up sets and the last 3 sets of 10 at your work weight. And then for core exercises, I would take 2 exercises and do 4 sets of 10 for those. And for the supplemental lifts, I would take 4 exercises and do 4 sets of 10 with those as well. So this is the basics of how to put together a lifting program for yourself. And it's going to take getting out there and experimenting and seeing where your body fires best. It could be at 4 reps, it could be at 3 reps, it could be at 2 reps like me. And if you track your lifting with your throwing, then you can see how the lifting's affecting your throwing. And when you have big spikes in your training, pay attention to that. And then you can start to structure your own lifting program based on what you find works best for yourself. So a couple things that I wanted to quickly mention about my own lifting may be applicable to you guys. And that's that if you guys are experiencing any injuries, you can start to look at different modifications of exercises that are still working the same muscle groups, but are isolating the muscles that are injured. So for example, because I've got some bad discs in my back, I can't do back squats. But at UVA, we have a pit shark machine that has a belt that hooks up to your waist, and that eliminates the pressure on my spine and just puts the load on my legs. And along with squats, I also can't do Olympic lifts, so I need to work my legs in different ways. And one exercise we're doing is we're taking a belt, hooking that up to a cable machine, and doing turns with the foot, as well as working on my sweep leg out of the back, and just doing what we can to strengthen my legs and eliminate my back from the lifts. Another great alternative to squats if you have back issues is pulling sleds, and by having the belt hooked around your waist, it's not putting the load on your spine. Anyway guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I plan to make a more detailed lifting guide in the future, but for right now, this is all the time that I have. And for anyone that's interested in a little bit more information, I did a lifting video last year discussing 5 things that I wish I knew when I began lifting. So you guys can check that out if you're interested. But thank you very much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.